Welcome to Lesson 2, Interpreting Double Bar Graphs. In the previous lesson, we looked at regular bar graphs, such as the one in this example. Here we're looking at the favorite sports of students in a class. We see how many students prefer soccer, softball, basketball, or something else. Pause the video for a quick moment and just see if you can figure out how many students like each sport. For soccer, we have 9 students, because halfway between 8 and 10 is 9. Softball, we have 4 students. Basketball, 6 students prefer basketball. And for other, there are 3 students. Now, how else can we use this information? Well, we know that in each class there are boys and girls, so we may be interested in the breakdown of how many girls prefer certain sports versus how many boys prefer certain sports. So this is where a double bar graph may come in handy. Let's look at an example. So we took the same information that the previous bar graph had, but this time we're breaking it down into girls and boys. So we see that our legend here in the top right corner shows us that the yellow bars represent the results for the girls, and the red bars represent the results for the boys. So each sport has 2 bars. One that represents how many girls like that sport, and the other bar represents how many boys like that sport. So take a moment to examine the results of the bar graph. If you remember, in the previous bar graph, it showed that 9 students liked soccer, and we see that there are 6 girls that prefer soccer and 3 boys that prefer soccer, and of course 6 plus 3 is equal to 9. But the previous bar graph didn't show us how many of those 9 students were boys and how many were girls, but this double bar graph does. And it's kind of interesting, with this double bar graph we can see that with girls, soccer was the most popular sport, but with boys, basketball was the most popular sport. We wouldn't have seen that in the previous example with just a single bar for all students, but we do see that in this double bar graph. So here are the 2 graphs that we just looked at in today's lesson. In the first one, we just had a regular single bar graph where we were looking at the favorite sports of students in the class. But then we decided to break it down so that we were able to see the favorite sports of girls and boys, and we created a double bar graph to show that information. So it's the same information, just the double bar graph gives us extra information, tells us how many which sports were more popular with girls, which ones were more popular with boys. So you use a double bar graph whenever you are comparing 2 different things, such as boys and girls. Let's look at one more example of a double bar graph. This double bar graph, as the title shows us, is about which fruit children prefer. And it's a double bar graph because this time we're not comparing boys and girls, but we're comparing kids in grade 5, that's the pink bars, and the orange bars represent kids in grade 6. So we see that for grade 5 kids, apples were most popular because that's the tallest pink bar. And for grade 6, oranges were most popular because that's the tallest orange bar. Let's see what other pieces of information we can get. If we add up the pink bars, we can tell how many grade 5 students there were. There are 8 for apple, 4 for orange, and 6 for grapes. So if we add up those 3 numbers, we get 18 grade 5 students. Pause the video and see if you can figure out how many grade 6 students there are. If you guessed there are 17 grade 6 students, you would be correct. We can also tell how many students in total preferred each fruit. So pause the video to figure that out as well. There are 13 students that prefer apple, 8 grade 5s plus 5 grade 6s, that's 13. 11 students total prefer oranges. And for grapes, it's the same, 11 students prefer grapes. Could we get one final piece of information from the survey? Let's see if you can figure out how many students total were surveyed. 35 students were surveyed altogether. We get that by adding 18 and 17, or if we add 13 plus 11 plus 11, we get 35 as well. So lots of information we can get from double bar graphs. So thank you for watching and have fun interpreting your own double bar graphs.